Welcome to Motherhood and Singlehood podcast. This podcast is about breaking the stereotype of single moms, is to help you navigate motherhood while being single, and is about reminding you who you are as a person behind all the labels you take on. Your hosts are Dawn, Kali, and Christina. Enjoy! Welcome to another episode of Motherhood and Singlehood podcast. Today we have Leigh Russell with us. Welcome, Leigh.
Hi.
Can you please tell us a bit about yourself first?
Me. I am a mom of two boys, married to my husband Dave, and been living in the UK for about 5 years. Just, you want a bit of background?
Sure, yeah.
I studied psychology and then started my master's in play therapy. While I was studying, I specialized in behavioral therapy, working with children on the autistic spectrum. So that's home programs, ABA, which is behavioral therapy. And then when I was doing my play therapy master's, I worked at a children's home, which is a resident for abused or abandoned children. And I was the resident play therapist there until we moved to London. And during lockdown, I did some extra training on positive discipline parenting and started just sort of helping some parents and doing some training. And I currently work and volunteer with Home Start. I've done a bit of training with them as well. And I'm I'm thinking about re-specializing in family therapy.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's really where I am.
And that you're the person that I run to sometimes when I need like advice or I'm like too much in my head. We met at the nursery. Our boys went to the same nursery, Montessori nursery, and they became friends. And that's how I met you a long time ago. I think like 4 years ago or something. The episode is about
emotional.
Strong single moms raising emotionally available boys.
Okay.
So we're going to talk a little bit about how single moms can do their best to help their boys develop their emotional intelligence, basically. Okay. Because it's this culture, or at least it was this culture where boys don't cry, they have to be strong and all that. And with that, actually, we have a few of these slogans. Like I said, boys cry too, or boys get sad too, which is a bit to bring awareness into the fact that boys have feelings too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think that it's such a big question, this, how do we, so I think it starts with patriarchy, and I think there is a patriarchal sort of paradigm, and actually with boys it starts a lot earlier than it does with girls, ironically. Around 3-4, we get that message, don't cry, boys don't cry, and it's subtle and often not so subtle, with boys in terms of the messaging that we have and the societal expectation and the language around that we use when speaking with boys. And I think that's, I think the question is, how do we change that? I think also we have to look at when and where and how that sort of is perpetuated. And I think, we need to look at the discrepancy of the way that people think boys should be versus who they want to be. But it also starts with their toys, right? Like very early. It does. Yes, there can be, but I think let's maybe shift back to sort of the emotional side, because otherwise, if we go into toys, that's a whole different sort of conversation. I think it's interesting how our society defines masculinity.
Right.
But the interesting thing is that there's different types of masculinity.
Yes.
And that's a dialogue that we need to be having with our children.
Right.
What does masculinity look like? And how to bring that about to a question. Well, we saw this person doing X. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
So creating that dialogue. Or I noticed, the other day that you didn't want to kiss me goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't have to broach it there and then, but you can say, well, what's happening when you don't want to say goodbye in front of your friends?
Yes.
Is it, and we don't have to dissect everything for our boys, because, there are places and spaces, and we often see a shift around, ironically, between, when they start nursery 4-5 to 6-7, where they want to, and part of it is normal individuation. you know, a child wanting to move apart from the mother figure or the and asserting their own sense of identity. And another part is how society and how the messaging that they're hearing through social media, you know, games, TV programs that they're watching, and how boys or men are depicted in those shows.
Yes.
And so boys pick up on that nuance. You know, I mean, most kids pick up on the nuance. And so they see their peers or older brothers or older kids not giving that extra hug to their mom, or saying, oh, you can kiss me there, or not when someone's looking, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And I think that our role as parents is to make that space a safe space for our children, and also not to judge them if they want to, don't want to, or if they want to, just to give that space to say, but also to have the dialogue around, you know, in our family, it's okay to express our emotion. This is how I like to do it. How do you like to do it?
Yeah. So as a mom, you really don't have to take things very personal when it comes
Well, as a parent, I think it's...
as a parent,
as a parent, generally, it's helpful not to take anything
It can be a bit triggering, right? Like, for example, Albert now is super cuddly.
Yes.
So as you're saying, I'm sure it will be a moment in time where he'll be like, you know what, just stay in the car. I'll go to school, you know.
Yeah.
And then it will be a huge shift for me.
Yeah.
So I need to like check my triggers and my reactions, right? Because that's not personal to me.
Yeah, that's not personal to you. I think it's just about creating a safe space to express your emotions, and about vulnerability. And it's more, as a parent, how you present that to your child.
Yeah.
Do you present a way that it's okay to be vulnerable, and how to express that space? Do you have those dialogues, those difficult conversations? And that's the thing. We often want to sort of mollycoddle our children and not have these difficult conversations. But how we create emotional awareness, whether you're a boy or a girl, is by exploring the nuances of emotion.
Yes.
To say there's this huge umbrella of emotions, and each of them are valid.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Each
like
of them
negative
are valid.
Emotions are valid too. I mean, not negative, but because then you make them good or bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just
so
like
all emotions are valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're starting with, just like you say, the moment of boys don't cry, how that would look to create emotional awareness would be, I can see this is upsetting.
Yes.
So starting with validation. Let's get those emotions out.
Yeah.
Crying is good.
Yes.
If you want to cry, you can cry.
Yeah.
And then to say, I'm here.
Yeah. Sometimes Albert just needs a hug.
Yeah.
You know, and he just wants to cry in my arms.
Yeah.
And then he's fine.
It's that safe space.
Yeah.
And that's how we model emotional awareness, by being emotionally aware ourselves.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, with parenting and all parenting, the work starts with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard work.
That's hard work. That's why it is so triggering.
Because we're so wired culturally, and then everything, the environment you grew up. And I grew up in Romania, so boys are supposed to be strong, right? Boys don't cry. You know, they don't. You don't expect a man to come and tell you how he feels, or you know. Well, basically, they just shut down because they don't know how to deal with their emotions as men, as grown-up men. So it's a bit like, I feel like positive parenting helps with that.
Oh, definitely. But I mean, I think also the question is, do you think that they're not allowed to, or not? I don't have that awareness.
I don't think they have the awareness, and I don't think they were taught as children, like our parents.
Or do you think that society maybe?
I think it was
pushes them not to have a safe space, because there's a duality here. And I think it's hard for men today, and especially because we're getting this message: be strong, be a provider, be this, be that, and then also be sensitive, be available, be this, but don't be too this, don't be too that. So I think for if I look at my husband, it's an interesting space for grown men now. But I think that hopefully that space will change for our children or our sons.
Yeah.
Because I think society is saying one thing, but they're not practicing what they're preaching.
Yes.
They're saying, be emotionally available, do this, and then judging.
Yes, that's
true. So there's a lot of judgment for men who are, more emotional. But there's this expectation, you need to be more of a partner, you need to be this, you need to be that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a duality, and I think patriarchy there's this huge patriarchal sort of bubble that's been created, and we need to pop that bubble, really.
Yeah.
Need to
Yeah, it just needs lots of work, right? Albert, for example, he doesn't like to be seen by other people crying. Other people outside our family. So even if it happens something in school, like we had a play date this week with a friend, and the friend couldn't come because he had to go to the doctor, but he didn't know until I picked him up from school. And he was so disappointed and upset, and he started crying, but he hid in my arms, and he wouldn't move his head until he finished. So, and also sometimes when he cries in the car and he wipes his tears and he says, do I look like I've cried? And I obviously say, no, you're fine. But he feels the need at school or when he goes out of the house to kind of hide that part of him.
So I think in that moment of, no, you look fine.
Yeah.
I think the validity is crying is normal and safe.
Yeah.
And if we have people that see us cry, that's okay. Because all emotions are valid.
Yeah. I think they're also afraid a little bit of other boys or kids
So the more
laughing of them.
But the more we verbalize that for our children and make that safe, the more comfortable they feel to say,
yes,
I cried. Yeah, I felt sad. I was upset.
Yeah.
And I cried.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah.
That's very normal.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about do you think that teaching our boys responsibility at like a young age and accountability, it's going to help them become like healthy individual later? Because there's all this problem, let's say, or situation with men that are not being held responsible, and they don't hold themselves accountable for their actions today. So I feel like I don't want to be. I'm teaching Albert. Like, don't blame that person, that other kid. Like, he's like, oh, I got in trouble, but that kid did something before. I was like, okay, like, fair enough. He started it in a sense. But you need to hold yourself responsible for your own actions. So placing blame on other people, it actually goes all the way in grown-up life.
Well, I mean, I think that's just individual. Some people, are more comfortable with exploring their role in a situation or not. And it's very much about how a parent approaches it.
Yeah.
So I think the messaging is the difference between a person or a child who learns to be more responsible and accountable and aware. I think the messaging is you make mistakes and mistakes are okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So modeling that's okay.
That or not? Do I keep on telling him, look, let's not blame others. It was wrong for them to start, right? Or to push you or to hit you or whatever. But that doesn't mean you're going to react like that. Take a second to think about it. Not only what you're going to do, but also the consequences. Because sometimes he doesn't think of the consequences.
Well, he's 7.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
Okay, so
you might go thinking way too much.
Let me just... Okay, so we also need to be aware that developmentally, cognitive thinking, I mean, it's great what you're doing. You're modeling that. You're saying, okay, well, what are the consequences, being aware, but also full brain maturity, and that's seeing that our behavior has consequences, doesn't develop neurologically until 25.
Yeah. Yes.
So let me just put that. 25.
25, that's a long time.
That's
right?
a long time.
Because people think it's until 7.
No.
Yeah.
25.
Okay,
so
yeah, it's
your
a long
child
time. Yeah.
does not have the abilities to sort of see their actions and their consequences all the way through.
Yes.
Neurologically.
Yeah.
And I mean, we see the brain chemistry changes completely when they're a teenager. Almost that it sort of matches a 3-year-old, so they have even less inability.
Okay.
So modeling all those things gives them the tools, but we cannot expect them
to use them
all the time.
Okay.
So that's just going back. And I think, I want to just go back to a thought, because when I was coming onto this show, I thought, well, Christina and her friends want to talk about divorce, being single and raising single children. And so it made me think about divorce and made me think about, and I was just thinking that divorce is not a single event.
Right.
It's not a single event.
No.
And, a lot of people say, we got divorced and then my child did this and things fell apart.
Yes.
But it's not. The long-standing problems started before the divorce.
Sure.
And they progressed after the divorce.
Yes.
There's a constant negotiation. There's a constant sort of working of relationship, of, and it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
It's been going on for years before and will continue to go on for years before.
Yeah.
So there's not a single point, and neither is parenting.
Right.
So you can have a problem, come up with a solution,
Yeah.
and it can work, but the dynamics change. Your child changes. Your relationship changes. You're in a system and an environment.
Yeah.
So, parents will say, oh, I tried this and it worked for this one. And then they think, oh, that's not working.
Yes.
They don't think, well, the problem changed or the dynamic changed, and now we need to revisit this.
Right.
For example, you have a 3-year-old who doesn't want to brush their teeth. Then you develop a toothbrushing song. Then then they're 7, and you think, well, why the hell is the toothbrush song not working?
Yeah.
So we have to look at all problems like this.
I see. Yeah.
As your child develops, we approach each problem developmentally to where they are, meeting.
Yeah.
And each time we model that behavior, which is really hard, we give them the tools and the language to approach those problems, and we create awareness. And by doing those 3 things, we help them progress.
Yeah.
But I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and our children to be these perfect beings. And that's where the growth is.
Yeah.
The growth is, I am a fallible person. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. Let's learn.
Yeah.
Let's learn together. And I don't mean by saying you can't be emotionally vulnerable with your children and they shouldn't see that, that you need to put all your emotions onto your child.
Yeah.
But finding the balance between I make a mistake or this is hard for me in this moment, not without burdening our children, is a fine line.
Yes.
But there's growth in that.
Okay.
In walking that path.
Yeah. I think that's where I struggle. Like you said, I find a solution for a problem, then something changes, it doesn't work anymore, and then I feel guilty. I'm like, I thought I went through all this already.
Exactly.
And then I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm failing.
Exactly. And we're not.
Yeah. Well, it does feel at the moment sometimes,
So I heard on a podcast, I can't remember what, it was some parenting specialist, and I can't remember her name. I will try and find it. Anyway, she said, imagine you're on this airplane and you're flying and you hit turbulence and the flight is a bit like bumpy and you land and the pilot turns around and says, I'm sorry, I'm such a terrible pilot. There was turbulence and it was bumpy and it was shocking. I can't do a good job and I should have stopped doing this and you're the worst pilot ever.
Yeah.
Does that make logical sense to you?
No.
The weather was out of their control.
Yeah.
They had certain skills set,
yes,
but they cannot control everything in the environment.
Yeah.
So parenting is the same way. We cannot be these perfect pilots because there's everything outside of our control.
Yes.
And you wouldn't, so and we have to look at parenting the same way. We're going to go through turbulence.
Yeah.
It's not something that we can stop. The presence of turbulence does not mean you're a bad pilot. The presence of bad behavior, or not bad behavior, of reactive behavior, because there's no real bad behavior.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Children
I
are
agree.
reactive. So I think the presence of children being children in a world and expressing themselves and having a meltdown does not mean you're a bad parent.
Okay. But how can single moms deal with that? Like, just be aware, because sometimes, like, I have lots of help, right?
Yeah.
But Kali, for example, she doesn't.
Yeah.
And she's probably exhausted, from work and day-to-day things. How do you do it in the moment?
In the moment?
Give yourself some grace.
Yeah, that's exactly it. In the moment, know that you're fallible.
Yeah.
Know that there's no perfect moment.
Yeah.
So whatever that looks like for you as a parent and single parent, and this is why single parenting is so hard, because you are outside of community.
Yeah.
And you're outside of, your resources are tapped. Yeah. And that is emotionally taxing. And our children pick up on that. They pick up when we're not present. And I always say, for the single parent, try and find that time for yourself
Yeah.
to recharge, whatever that looks like.
Yes.
But then at the same time, try and make sure that you're connected.
Yeah.
And I mean 100% one-on-one. When you're 100%, no screens, nothing, present with your
Yeah.
child doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be long. It has to be
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Yes.
Every day, 15
I
minutes. Or
was
whatever
reading-
you're going to carve that space out.
Yeah. I was reading about that, your time as a mom, with boys especially, because it just happens that we are all raising boys.
Yes, yes.
It's different than with girls. For example, boys will take a quality time just playing football with them, not talking about anything, compared to girls. And it gets me this point I was trying to talk to you about. Like, I like to talk things through, right? Like, as women, we can talk things through, explain, make it everything sounds logical and stuff like this. Lately, Albert is not into talking that much. He's like, can we just drop it? And, or especially if he comes from school and he's just not in a chatty mood. He just likes to sit in the car, listen to some quiet music until we get home. He likes to jump on the trampoline a little bit, like not really talking to anyone. And I've noticed my dad doing the same when he comes from work. He's not very chatty. Like literally, the second he gets into the house, if you go and like bombard him with like problems and stuff, he gets very frustrated. So he needs his like half an hour to like relax and distress.
I think it's just a universal thing. Some people just need a little bit of space and time
Yeah.
between transitioning, and finding the right time to talk to somebody.
But is it more like boys or girls thing, or?
I mean, I think there is. I don't like to do a boy or a girl thing. Just
People in general.
Yeah, professionally.
Yeah.
I think but yeah, I think with men we do find it's easier when they are non-directive,
Yeah.
sort of driving in a car,
Yeah.
or distracted with another activity, or these sort of spaces are easier. But I think finding your child
Yeah.
and finding that space in the right time, picking up straight after school, not always the best time.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
processing.
Yeah.
They're processing everything they had to deal with
Yes.
in school. What happened, the homework, who said what, like they're in that space now where they're processing it.
Yeah.
When you're driving, maybe I always like conversations when I'm driving, but maybe your child likes to listen to music or a podcast or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. And so that's not that space. That is that transition space. Maybe before bedtime, that's
Yeah.
that space.
Yeah,
Today
yeah,
I noticed blah, blah, blah. How do you feel about that? Or what do you
Yeah.
think about this? And I think it is just knowing when the right space is to engage. And you can say, oh, I feel like I need to connect with you more. Or maybe it is less about creating a space of, or tell me about this, or do this, or why aren't you, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And more about sharing your experiences.
Yes.
So then it becomes about inviting them into a space rather than you putting yourself into their
Yeah.
space and saying, so now tell me what you feel.
Yes. Yeah.
Which can be very intimidating.
True.
So rather, presenting something, I read this and it made me feel this, and then I thought about this. What would you think, or what would you do? Or can you help me with this problem? Or do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's inviting in rather than putting ourselves into that space.
It's also, or what you're saying, it also, when I started a relationship, with, I'm not talking about men, just like in general with a friend, it's always when I share something first from my life, gives them, it's like, it gives them like a little access into
it's vulnerability.
Yeah, and then they start sharing, and then the conversation starts flowing.
Yes.
So it's kind of the same.
It's the same.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Once we share a part of ourselves,
Yeah.
once we share our vulnerability or something we're struggling with, or humor, or whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
the sharing invites connection.
Right. So it's good to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Going back to boys shouldn't be vulnerable.
Oh, definitely. We have to model that vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to, whatever that looks like.
I just want to talk about, as single moms, I read that you boys especially need to have a strong role model, like a male role model in their life. And it's not always the case. sometimes the dad is present, which is good, like for us, it's good. But sometimes the dad is not present, or if he is present, it makes more harm than good. As single moms, what can we do to balance that?
Well, I think boys need, and especially around 6, 7, they have a huge testosterone spike.
Okay.
Neurologically, that creates lots of interesting aggressive behavior. And not necessarily aggressive as in violent, but they have a need for more physical, boundary pushing play.
Yes.
And we need to create a space, and that's where sports is good. They like to, a lot of boys then start playing video games or whatever the case may be, or they need that outlet to express those feelings.
Okay.
So more movement, more aggressive play, sort of, pillow fight, rough housing. That's very good, important risk-taking, sort of climbing a tree, balancing, or an activity where maybe rock climbing, giving the space where they, because the role often that a male figure creates is a space of exploration, pushing the boundaries.
Okay.
Mother roles or mothering roles are traditionally more protective and nurturing.
Yeah. Don't climb that tree.
Exactly. You're going to fall.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so how that can look as a mom to a boy of a single mom is, you can still voice that because it could be a valid concern.
Yeah.
To say, well, if you climb really high, do you think if you get to that branch, it will be safe or not?
Yeah.
Do you get the difference?
But it's not like you're not allowed to climb the tree because you're going to
But also creating that space, or you like to go really high.
Right.
And that feels exciting to you.
Yeah.
Just to validate that experience for them. Going really fast on your bicycle is exciting for you.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't have to unpack it. We don't have to be like, put on a helmet. Make sure they're in a space that they're not going to kill themselves or get ridden over by a car. But we have to create those spaces for risk-taking, for exploring, for physical contact and boundary pushing.
Okay.
And that is a good space for them.
Okay. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. But do you think they miss their dad when he's completely absent?
It depends. Okay. It really depends on because you can have same-sex parents. So
yeah. I didn't thought of that.
So, it's really about, as I said, there's different parts of masculinity and they're all valid.
Okay.
We're just looking at one element of masculinity.
Yeah, okay.
But men have emotions and emotional language and so we can't just look at just one element of that.
Okay.
So I do.
So you need to focus on how your child develops and basically create, let's say, a community around you and your child, and have options, I guess, for them to explore who they are.
Well, exploring who they are should be a natural part of our parenting. Do you know what I mean? So, I think I'm not too sure about your question there.
It wasn't. It was just
okay.
Well, yeah, because I read that boys need their dad after the age of 7. So that's why it was all this. Do they need a male role model in their life?
Like you said, like I was saying earlier, around 6, 7, we have that testosterone. Sometimes as young as 5, we have it.
Okay.
And there's just various points where children are more, boys have more testosterone in flooding in their body. I think it depends on the relationships.
Yeah.
It depends on what that relationship looked like before.
Yeah.
It depends on, was there a male figure in their life before. But it's less about a father figure and more about, how the different relationships come into a child's life.
Yeah. But also, I have this friend, so we're not going to give names, but just going to say we have a friend. So the dad is on and off in the boy's life, and he's quite toxic. Like when he is just with his son, he talks very bad about his mom, right? The son's mom, the boy's mom. So what do you, and you know that as a mom, you know, because your child comes back and like, this is what daddy said, and or you see in his behavior, or sometimes he even uses, right, because if they're not talking nicely to you as a mom, your child picks up on that, and then they start using words that they hear from their dad. So you can't really tell your child, oh, you're not allowed to see your dad anymore, right?
And it's a very hard thing
Yeah,
about
exactly.
any.
How do you deal with that? How can you deal with that? It's like, it's a bit tricky, isn't it?
It is a very tricky space, and I think that's one of the most tricky spaces of divorce, right?
Yeah.
Is that you can't control what the other person is saying to
Yeah.
your child.
Yeah.
And I think that the conversation, this really just depends on where and how old your child is.
Yeah.
To say that this is really
Well,
hard.
let's say 7, like our boys are now, right? So this is happening now. And my friend was concerned that she is doing her best, like 99% of the time her son is with her. And she was just concerned that her son's going to change the image he has about her, right? With all this like little bits that he hears from his dad.
Yeah.
Which is not fair, because you're doing the best that you can with what you have.
Exactly.
You've got no help.
Yeah.
And then this guy comes once in 2 months or 3 months and decides to like mess up everything. And then the child needs therapy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that the dialogue then becomes around exploring that space with that child.
Right.
You know, sometimes you hear your dad say X. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Do you think that's true? And also setting a boundary for yourself.
Yeah.
So a boundary is not something you're going to make your child do. It's something you decide to do.
Yeah.
So I am not going to let you speak to me that way.
Right. Yeah.
In our house, we're going to speak to each other respectfully. And
Yes.
this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
If you are angry with me, let's talk about that. What is that? You know, sometimes you hear things, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, this can be confusing because you're hearing daddy say this about mommy.
Yeah.
And that can make you maybe feel, and you can list those feelings because that's what's confusing for children.
Yeah.
Is when they realize that a situation can have multiple feelings, not just happy, sad, bad.
Yeah.
But they can feel frustrated or angry at their father. They can, and then they take it out on their mother.
Yeah.
They can feel angry at their mother because of something the father said.
Yeah.
They can feel confused and unsteady, uncertain in themselves, and that comes out in different ways. So I think the dialogue is, this can be a confusing space for you.
Yeah.
I know you hear your dad say this,
Yeah.
and you come home and you want to know what the truth is. Let's talk the truth.
Yeah.
There's different parts.
Yeah.
Your dad might experience this as that.
Yes.
This is my experience.
Yeah.
I love you, and I know this is hard for you.
Yeah.
I love you no matter what.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate that when a mom and a dad get divorced, there is this space, and things are done differently. Things are said differently, and to help your child find the truth for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I had with Albert something like this conversation. His dad got upset with me because of something. Obviously, it was his perspective. I thought I did nothing wrong, whatever. He's like taking it out of context. But Albert was in the car with him when that happened. And later in the afternoon, I had to go pick him up. And as we're driving back home, he said, I'm very upset with you. And I said, why? What did I do? And he said, because you made daddy upset. And you did something that made daddy upset. Can you tell me what you did? And I said, actually, you know what? That's not a conversation for you to have. You're still a little boy. That's for me and daddy to talk about.
Lovely.
And I said, do you think it's fair for me that you got upset with me just because your dad did? Like, you didn't hear my part of the story. And, you know, daddy got upset with me today. He'll be fine in a few days, you know. Like, we'll get back to, like, talking and, you know, get it out of our system. But I said to him, I don't think it's fair that you got upset with me too. And I said, maybe you just, even if we have a fight, you just let us fight. And you just be a little child and you don't need to, like, take sides. Which is kind of tempting for them to take sides.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, definitely they want to take sides,
Yeah.
but also to validate that experience for them.
Yeah.
I think that you need to check in to see where they're feeling.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think what you did there was spot on. It was fantastic. Was
Okay,
saying,
thank you.
that is a boundary.
Yeah.
This is something between your father and I.
Yes.
We love you,
Yeah.
and we need to work through
Yeah.
these issues.
Yeah, because I think I also read, when I say I've read, because I was reading so much, I don't remember where.
100%.
Like I read somewhere that they do take sides if you don't talk to them, and also they feel guilty. Like let's say one parent is in the wrong lots of times, but they feel guilty for loving that parent.
Guilt is a big thing.
Yeah.
Guilt is also resentment. I resent you for making me feel X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And I think exploring that guilt, because it's hard for them. For example, when you have the parent who's doing something negative, and they are hearing the message that that parent is wrong or not right or bad in some way, but I love you still.
Yes.
Does that make me bad? Because children are egocentric.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if my parent is bad, am I bad?
Yes.
It always goes back to I.
Yeah.
And it's not something you've done wrong. It's just neurologically and developmentally, children are egocentric.
Yeah.
So again, that goes back to validation.
Yeah.
To try and separate your emotion, like you said, that's between mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah.
And this is not your problem.
Yes.
If you feel X, Y, and Z, or you want to talk about how that makes you feel, we can do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's have that space. Let's talk about how that makes you feel.
Yeah.
But this problem is mommy's problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not your problem.
He likes to know, but that's something we do. We don't talk ill about his dad in his house. Like I don't, right? My parents don't. Like we don't want him to hear this. We don't really have anything because he's not here. So, but we just don't want him to hear stuff because this is just our perspective, right? This is what happened between our interactions with his dad. So it's I think what I really early on realized, and I said it before, my relationship with his dad ended, not his relationship with his dad.
Exactly. Which is a huge shift.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggle to make that shift.
Yeah. I think
But your relationship didn't end. Your relationship changed.
Changed. Okay. Yeah.
And so that's the nuance, though.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. Yeah.
You're constantly in relationship.
Yeah.
And that's why modeling what that looks like, even if it's just one-sided, is so important.
Yes. At least they see.
And also, when you're in a relationship with a toxic person, modeling what that looks like.
Yeah.
Modeling your boundary.
Yeah.
As a parent.
Yeah.
Is even more important.
Yes.
You're allowed to have your feelings. That person's allowed to have their feelings. And these are mine.
Yeah.
You don't need to validate yourself to your child.
Right.
But you can say, and I am not going to be disrespected. And you need to talk to me in a respectful manner.
Yeah.
Because each person deserves respect.
True.
We can talk about the feelings, but we need to validate a boundary, respect, kindness in any relationship, right?
Yeah. Yeah. True. To talk a bit about the double standard, like what had happened at Albert's school. So what happened?
Okay.
I want to tell you something. What happened on Friday at Albert's school? They were doing PE, and one of the girls got upset with him and his friend for I don't know what happened. He got the ball or something first, and she started being mean to them and also pushing them. Right, like not hitting them, but just like pushing them. And at one point, Albert was fed up, went to the teacher and said, you know what, this girl is doing this to us. And the teacher was like, I don't want to hear it. We're not going to talk about how dismissive the teacher was. I just want to say, he told me in the car the whole thing. And then he said, if I would have done that to a girl, I would have gotten in trouble.
Yes.
And that's when I realized he wasn't upset that the teacher was like, I don't want to hear it.
That's wonderful
go back.
Awareness that there's a double standard.
He was upset that if he would have pushed a girl at school, he would have gotten
girl, yes, and the girl
told on him. So why is this double standard? with boys and girls. I know it's a huge complex. Is it just like individually, like that specific teacher was maybe I don't know.
Well, I mean, they're in their own, you know, sort of world of what is acceptable as socially acceptable behavior in certain gender roles and the expectation of that. And so, you know, people have this, they have the lens of a patriarchal society, of social norms and social expectations. And so the prism of how boys are viewed is vast.
Yeah.
So, and we break that down by saying, validating, you know, in that experience, and saying, wow, that felt like a double standard. And that must be frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, we can't always come with solutions with our children. We don't, or we can't always change anything, but we can validate that experience.
Yeah. I told him, this is called double standard. It was the first time we talked about it.
Yeah.
And I said, unfortunately, it's going to happen a lot in your life.
There we go. Yeah.
So you need to be aware of the fact that people have a certain expectation from boys. Be strong, right? I think the message was like, don't come and whine. You know, like, go be a boy.
Yeah.
Kind of, right? Yeah. So I told him that, but he kept on asking, like, why? I'm like, you know what, like it's a big conversation, isn't it? And I think I need, because it happened already, so I need to slowly start explaining him. You know, he doesn't hit girls or anything, but he said he was aware of the fact that if roles were different, you know, he would have gotten in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think there's wonderful awareness there, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I was surprised. I was surprised.
But that's the thing. Our boys surprise us because, you know, we put label boy and then people take away the emotional side because they think, you know, but our boys are actually more often overly emotional, overly needing for tactile responses and hugs and input and affection.
Yes.
If not as equal as girls, even more so.
Even more. I feel like more so than girls. They need more hugs and love, and they need to know you love them. Like Albert had a period of time, I think when he was around 3 maybe, when he would ask me almost every day if I love him, but not like, you know, when I'm happy. Like when I'm mad with him or frustrated or when he does something bad or he's guilty of something. And I said, I always try to say, I will love you always, no matter what. But I don't have to like something that you're doing or something that you're saying.
Separating the behavior from the child.
Yes. And I also said, well, sometimes when you do something like this that gets me upset, I need a few minutes just to calm down. And then we can talk about it. So he does that to me now. If I get him upset, he's like, I need a few minutes. Then we can talk about it. And the first time he said it, I was like, I didn't know, because I'm like, okay, let's talk about it now, right? Yes. And then I was like, I need to give him a few minutes. You know, it's okay.
Yes.
So I think it's also important to let go a little bit, isn't it?
Well, I mean, between a response and a reaction, there's a lot of growth, right?
Yeah. And you have the time to calm down a little bit.
Yes, that's what we're modeling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is hard. To model. Again, it just really goes back to modeling.
Yeah.
To modeling what self-reflection looks like, to modeling what having space when you're in a flipped lid sort of state, when you know, not able to sort of process in that space.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. We just need to model those behaviors for our children and give them the dialogue and the emotional language to express that.
Yeah. And that's how we raise strong boys.
That's how we raise
and
strong
emotionally
boys.
Available boys.
Exactly. By being also emotionally available.
Yeah.
You know, so often something happened to me this week where my son said to me, something happened at school. Some boy pushed him and he was upset and pushed. Some boy wanted something he had and took it out of his hand. And then he took it back and the boy pushed him. And I didn't realize at the time, because I had to sort of unpack this. I was like, oh, you know, you really wanted it, so I validated. And then he pushed you and you pushed him back. And I said, well, you know, I'm sure he was upset that you took it in the first place or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And I realized that I rather than creating just the space to express what was happening in that moment, I turned to judgment.
Yeah.
It didn't unpack as judgment in my mind. It was more me trying to create awareness of other.
Yeah.
But by constantly creating awareness of other,
Yeah.
we're not validating that space of this experience.
Yes.
Whether that experience was, nuanced and had different sort of,
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
we need to just create that space to say, I did this.
Yes.
I did this.
Yeah.
And then if they're asking or needing sort of, your child,
Yeah.
whether it was just sort of they're gauging whether, was this the right thing to do or not, or just, this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it happened a few times to me, exactly like it happened to you. And Alba would say to me, why do you care more about the other child than me? And then it was, okay, let me reformulate everything I was trying to tell you.
Exactly.
They take it as,
so not everything
we're blaming them.
Yes, not everything is a teachable moment.
Yeah. Yes.
Certainly
That's what I learned too.
Certainly not in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So creating the safe space where all emotions and behaviors are allowed.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Because then that is going to come to you as a teenager.
Yeah.
When somebody's kid is doing this or inviting them to, try this drug or that drug.
Yeah.
You're that safe space.
That's why I don't believe in punishment. Because it's a situation, you don't really know what happens. He blames at school. He got blamed at school, right? And then the teacher tells me. And then you feel triggered. And you're like, okay, so you're not having this and that for like 3 days. And then I realized, actually, it doesn't help.
No, we're not teaching anything.
Yeah, me getting angry, punishing him, he just gets like withdrawn. He doesn't want to tell me what happened. He feels like, which it is like, I'm judging him and blaming him. So I decided no more punishment, right? Like no taking the iPad for 3 days, no nothing. And when something else happened and the teacher told me, he looked at me and he said, "Are you mad with me?" And I said, "No, we're just going to go to the car and you can tell me what happened." And I saw in his eyes the first time he couldn't believe it, that, it's like, he's fine. Like, he's not going to be punished. I'm not going to go crazy. He just like had the space. And then he tells me everything, what happened, like how it happened. And sometimes it happens that it's not his fault. He's just at the wrong time, wrong place, wrong time. And he gets in trouble, which, it can be possible.
Exactly.
Well, Leigh, thank you so much for coming today.
You're welcome.
It was lovely having a chat with you. And
likewise.
Hopefully you'll come some other time.
Happy to chat. Hopefully my train of thought will be a little bit more linear next time. But
we're having it Sunday morning, so
okay.
now it's like it's after a whole week of being like stressed and stuff. So
that's a good way to unwind, and it's a good way to voice and share in community.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe to follow our stories and our conversations. Get in touch with us and let us know what you think. Until next time, have a lovely day, my friends.